Also, we have Greg Anderson here. Greg is the co-maintainer of the Drush project. Greg has a secret Easter egg at the end. It's not really a secret.
I do?
Yeah. At the end of the presentation to make this whole system and getting up and running with the Quicksilver platform hooks even simpler.
That's not a secret.
It's not a secret. It's open source.
The other example is a secret program for managing your secrets.
Well, that's open source too.
That's also open source.
All right. So there's a lot of open source going on. There's some very cool technology behind the scenes, and we hope that it helps you out. We'll start out with a quote. Asking experts to do boring and repetitive yet technically demanding tasks is the most certain way of ensuring human error that we can think of, short of sleep deprivation or inebriation.
Unfortunately, we don't have a solution for sleep deprivation or inebriation today. We're only going to be covering a solution for boring and repetitive tasks.
All right, so the Quicksilver platform hooks product is all about automation. Automation has a host of benefits. The first is really opportunity cost. We want to free your time doing those boring and repetitive things, or writing extra systems to do those boring and repetitive things for you, so that you can focus on what matters most. And that's kind of Pantheon's whole value proposition to the agency, is we want you to focus on Drupal and WordPress and let us focus on the boring and repetitive things that we find fascinating. The machine is always going to perform those tasks that you tell it to, given the conditions, so you can be sure that no one can forget to notify everyone in Slack when they deploy code into the live environment. The machine will always tell New Relic when your deployment happened. The machine will always sanitize the database if you want it to sanitize the database when you clone your database from live into test or dev.
And it'll always correctly format your JSON files.
And it will always. Thanks, Greg. I'm a noob. Greg is trolling me. It's okay. And it will improve your project visibility through those dependable notifications. I'm going to share a correctly formatted JSON file so that you guys can notify us when you do things. All right, so what is Quicksilver platform hooks? Essentially, on the platform, if you have a pantheon.yml file inside of your code base, or at the root of your code base, and in that pantheon.yml file, you've identified the different workflows that we have made quicksilverable, if you will, or automatable. Those 4 workflows are the sync code workflow. Sync code is what happens when you click commit code on a development or multi-dev environment, or what happens when you push code to your code repository on Pantheon. The second quicksilverable workflow is the deploy workflow. For most of you, this is self-explanatory. At the test deploys tool or the live deploys tool, clicking deploy will trigger the deploy workflow. The clone database workflow is also quicksilverable. Clone database as a workflow, while it happens as a part of the deploy workflow sometimes, we're specifically talking about when you clone a database using the workflow tool in the Pantheon dashboard. And we'll show you this in the demo in the next slide. And the fourth and most tested workflow here, not most used, is the clear cache workflow. The clear cache workflow is what happens when you click the clear cache button in the Pantheon site dashboard, or use terminus site clear cache command. This is not what happens when you use terminus or a drush site alias to run drush cc all. So this workflow, if you have clear cache identified in pantheon.yml, your script is not going to run if you use drush or WP-CLI to clear the cache. It will only run when you use the Pantheon platform to clear the cache. So after those workflows happen or are triggered by your developers or your team, the platform hooks will respond by running PHP scripts. Fairly simple. So those PHP scripts are going to be identified inside of the pantheon.yml associated with the workflow, either before the workflow runs or after the workflow runs. And the platform or the application container that's running on that environment will execute those scripts for now. All right, so let's get to the demo. Right to the demo. This is how we like it. Let's flip back over here, and that's not the right thing. I'm going to exit this slide deck. All right. So I have Quicksilver all set up in my code repository. I've got a commit that I just pushed up to Pantheon. I have a Slack channel all set up and integrated with this site with Quicksilver. And at 9:52, I pushed my first commit to this site that was ready for, that Quicksilver was ready for. The script that ran after the sync code workflow sent this message into the Slack channel with a nice link to the environment, a mail to my email, which is kind of scary. Why did you do that? No. And it's also set up to respond to deploys. So I think I have this set up to respond to before deploy, it's going to send me a message in Slack, and then after the deploy, it's going to sanitize the DB. It's going to run a config import if it needs to, and it's going to send another message in Slack that the deploy was complete. All right. It's important to note that the clone database operations that I've identified are not going to run just because this box is checked. Clone database, again, is only for when using the workflow tool. So let's click that button. All right, we have that Slack message. You can see it in the top right of your screen. If I click, I've got that going. It's deploying. Before the workflow, and I haven't fixed the messages, this is the last deploy message that was on the server on the test environment. We have a nice link to the test environment, a link to view the dashboard at test deploys if I want. It's a nice touch. So that other members of the team can get to that test deploys. All right, and that workflow is still running. There's another way to watch the workflows, and that is with using Terminus. So I'm running a command here, Terminus workflows watch for the site p-a. And in Terminus, it is rolling through all of the workflows that are running on the platform. I think maybe I'm on the wrong. Yeah, there we go. Wow, look at that. Awesome. So it posted to Slack before cloning the database. That happened. Then I posted to New Relic after that deploy. We should have a deploy marker there in Quicksilver. It sanitized the DB. It's very interesting. Using drush SQL san was the command that I used. And then I have another operation to pull the config into the database from the code base on test. And finally, that final post to Slack right here. Got another one with the updated message.
It did a lot.
I know, it did a lot. And I didn't have to do anything.
Awesome.
And it's going to happen every single time.
That sounds very reliable.
I know. Yeah, having used Pantheon for a long time, I just saved myself, you know, hours and hours. I mean, even if it's just running those drush commands after I deploy, I don't have to type them anymore. I don't have to, you know, start a script for my local that's going to run the terminus drush commands. The platform is just going to do it. Do it for me. All right. So that's a very, very quick demo. I can show you a little bit into what New Relic looks like with that deployment post to New Relic that was automated. This is another site that I deployed to yesterday a few times. In your New Relic Pro, again, so deployments are a feature only of New Relic Pro, so that if you're a New Relic user and you turn on New Relic at a specific time in your development lifecycle, maybe a few days before the site launches, and then watch the Pro, you know, for that 10 days after the launch, your deployments are going to be logged here. Otherwise, you're going to have to upgrade to New Relic Pro to have this feature available. But the platform will mark those deployments so that you can see essentially the before and after effects of your code pushes into test and live. So we have that right there. We have an automated deploy marker with Quicksilver. All right, so what are the parts that make up this system on Pantheon? First, in your code base, you need a valid pantheon.yml file. And walking through this short example, we see that the workflows are identified. We have sync code, and again, the others are deploy, clone database, and clear cache. We're identifying that we want the scripts below to run after that sync code operation happens. The type. The only type of Quicksilver operation right now is WebPHP. Greg, can you tell us exactly what is WebPHP? How is it different from just PHP?
Well, the WebPHP hook is making a request through the web server that eventually goes and runs the script that you specified with the script element a couple of lines down. And the important difference here is that since it's going through the web server, it's going to be subject to the 2-minute timeout that all web requests are subject to. So really long-running scripts might terminate sooner than you'd really want them to. And this is an unfortunate limitation at the moment, but not to worry. Pantheon is going to have a script type later that will run the scripts directly without involving the web server, and those will not be subject to the time limit.
Awesome. Yeah, that was one of the only tickets that we've received. It looked like it had failed, a sanitized DB on a humongous database. It looked like it had failed. It had actually succeeded at the timeout.
Yeah, so WebPHP will get you started. There's a lot of things you can do with it.
Mm-hmm.
You can experiment with it, and you know, before you get into sanitizing really large databases or doing really slow operations, you'll have to wait for the next release.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be too far off.
Shouldn't be too far off. That's great. So we have a description field there that's self-explanatory in this script. It's important to note that the directory from the script for the script is in the private directory inside of your code base. That's so that unprivileged users can't hit that script. Since it is WebPHP, you don't want people executing that, just by a bot hitting it.
Right. So that script is implicitly relative to code, not to the top of your file system space.
Right. Yeah. So it's in your code base, and the second directory there, scripts, can be whatever you want to name it. So if you want it scripts Quicksilver or just Quicksilver directory inside of your private directory, that's completely up to you. All of the examples that we have published are in private scripts.
We recommend consistency. It doesn't have to be a Quicksilver script. It could be other kind of scripts, but of course it's all up to you.
Yeah, so here's an example of a WebPHP script. Again, this is web requested PHP, subject to the 120-second timeout. Greg, what does this script do?
Well, this is just an ordinary hello world style script that prints out a greeting to the person who's watching, and you can see this run with the terminus workflows watch command. You'll see that one of the first things it does is it dumps out the post superglobal, and the platform is going to stuff all sorts of interesting information into this variable, and you can run this inspector to see what's available for your use. And then we also dump out the environment variables. Since this is a WebPHP script, all of the environment variables that you get in any web request are also available for you to examine in your Quicksilver scripts.
Great. All right, the final element to the puzzle here is a secrets.json file. So in contrast to the PHP, which we want to store in our code repository, this secrets.json file is inside of the file system around Valhalla, also in a private directory, so it's not accessible to the public. This is where you can store machine tokens or Slack webhook URLs, inside your anything that you need to store in private on the platform for Quicksilver to integrate with Jira or with Twilio or with Slack or whatever you want to integrate with. But you do not want to store that information in your Git repository. The secrets.json file on the demo site here really just consists of a Slack URL and a Slack channel to post to. That file is in files private on all three environments. So I got this set up before I created the test and the live environment, before I created the multi-dev environment that I spun up, and now it's just there on all of the environments. So it's a good idea. It will take less work to get this set up at the beginning of the project before you create test and live. It's also not that big of a deal to have to, put it on all three environments. And Greg wrote a script for it.
Yes, you can see the script there in a pull request. At the moment, it's just a simple Bash script, it's a PHP script, but it's just a simple standalone script. And later we'll talk about the Quicksilver CLI that this is probably going to migrate into at some future time, but you can use it today in its current form.
Yeah. So that URL will show again the base URL to our Quicksilver-examples repository. Fear not, we don't expect everyone to start from scratch with the Hello World inspector example. The Quicksilver-examples repository is open source and on GitHub. The 4 examples that we have published up there right now are the DB sanitization example, which is going to get a pull request from me very soon. The debugging example, which is that inspector example, New Relic deploy, which you just saw, and Slack notifications, which we demoed as well. Pull requests are welcome to this repository. We have great success with power users contributing to our documentation, to this Quicksilver examples already. In fact, yesterday we had a few pull requests go up. My colleague David Newton, who you might know from the support queue if you've submitted a ticket regarding the dashboard, published a Twilio notification example, which I saw working yesterday. It was pretty amazing. And Mike Milano has started the work for Jira integration, Cloudflare cache, and a generic webhook into a Drupal 7 module.
Yeah, Mike Milano is also sponsored by Pantheon. So Pantheon is pushing the examples. It's not leaving it all up to the power users. Although we have gotten some great contributions from power users and hope to get more. Yeah,
the closed examples and some of that you don't see in this screenshot here were unsolicited. Those three yesterday were definitely sponsored by Pantheon. All right. So let's talk about Quicksilver-CLI, Greg. Greg, why do we need a Quicksilver-CLI?
Well, we want Quicksilver to be quick to set up. We don't want Quicksilver to be slow to set up. Because there's a time cost to automation that you have to pay up front, and you're going to pay that back over and over again when you use it. But how long do you have to wait before you start reaping those rewards? The faster it is to set up, the sooner you can get started. So that's why we rolled together this Quicksilver-CLI. You can install it simply by running a Composer global install, and presuming you already have the Composer vendor bin directory in your path, then you can just run the Quicksilver command immediately after running Composer global install. The Quicksilver-CLI is also going to look for a quicksilver.yml configuration file in your home.quicksilver directory. You can start with the example one. Currently, the only thing you can configure is the location of additional repositories, so you can make your own repository full of Quicksilver examples. But by default, if you don't configure it, it points at the Pantheon examples that we just showed a minute ago. Then all you need to do to use Quicksilver-CLI is change your working directory into a local clone of a Pantheon site and run Quicksilver install and the name or part of a name of one of the samples you want. And it's going to go through and it's going to copy the script into the right location. It's going to set up your pantheon.yml file to run that script in the exact way that the README suggests that you should set it up. In fact, it takes that snippet right out of the README. So these little examples are not only self-documenting, but they also describe how the CLI tool should install them. And once you run this, you can just push it up with Git. You might want to actually read the source code first. It's always highly recommended. Understand what it's doing and polish it up for your exact needs, because right now these are just examples. We're going to polish them a bit more ourselves, but they're definitely intended, definitely intended for you to customize them to have them work exactly the way you want to. They're not intended to be static tools that are usable for everyone.
Yeah, and these instructions are on the README for the Quicksilver-CLI repository. If I travel over to GitHub, Pantheon-systems, Quicksilver-CLI, you can check out the README for getting up and running with this tool as well. All right, here's my full screen. Okay. Again, reminder, any questions? We're almost to the end of the show here. If you have any questions, please enter them right now into the questions tool there in the GoToWebinar control panel. On the roadmap, of course, we have other Quicksilver operation types, including drush and WP-CLI. Greg alluded to earlier a generic script type that will not be subject to the 120-second timeout. We have a little bit of site customization connected to Quicksilver, not necessarily a part of Quicksilver. We can't mention really any details there, but the pantheon.yml file is a big part and going to be a big part of your experience here on Pantheon.
Let you do cool things that people have wanted to do for a long time, and soon we're going to let you.
Teaser. Okay.
Yeah.
The workflow list that you saw here in Terminus, so in iTerm for me, that is going into the dashboard so that your team, when they click on those Slack notifications, you can configure those maybe to go to the workflow list so that you can look deeper into the Quicksilver operations that you set up to run. And I do have a few resources for you to check out. We have a documentation page there at pantheon.io/docs, articles, sites, Quicksilver. The examples repository has documentation in it as well, and the best documentation in my experience is working examples. And again, the URL for the Quicksilver CLI is at GitHub, pantheon-systems, quicksilver-cli. So now we're going to start the question and answer session. If you want to see anything, we have 29 minutes left allotted. We'll answer questions until we're done with questions, and then we'll wrap it up.
Alrighty, guys, it's time to launch the Q&A portion. So our first question is, are you planning to support other types than WebPHP?
Yes. We don't know what it's named yet. It's probably going to be called script, or maybe it will be called drush and WP-CLI if we split those apart. Mm-hmm. Still in the works, going hot and heavy in engineering right now. There are some interesting problems that need to be solved to make sure that these scripts run reliably. We already have the web server set up to do that reliably, but it has the timeout limitation and so on and so forth. So we are working on other types that will expand over time as needs arise.
Ready. Our next question is Windows Quicksilver? ?
What does that mean?
Well, maybe he's talking about the CLI. Henry, if you'd clarify, is that what you're talking about?
He's talking about Quicksilver CLI. Quicksilver CLI is written in PHP, mm-hmm. and it's based on the Symfony components, and I've not tried it on Windows, but I think it should run.
Yeah, the Composer install should.
And of course, the Quicksilver workflow itself runs on Pantheon, and it doesn't matter what operating system you use to connect to it.
Mm-hmm. And Henry did just clarify, guess how likely is the CLI to install on Windows?
Haven't tried it. Think it works.
Think it works.
Yeah.
If you run
reports, welcome.
Yes.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Next question is: are you planning to support Node/JavaScript webhooks? We're using Grunt and Gulp tools currently.
Ooh, that is not on the roadmap, but a lot of people would love to see that. So.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen. You might still need a continuous integration server like Circle or Travis to run those tasks automatically. Sean. Hi, Sean. How's it going?
Alrighty, Sean. Sean had asked, can the WebPHP scripts run Terminus commands?
We have discussed that. It probably works now that we have the we've announced the OAuth tokens, right?
The machine tokens went to power users. Sean's on the power. Most of
Everyone here.
Most of the people
users.
asking questions are from power users. So you could probably get it going. In Terminus, in the CLI repository, there's a docs directory that the installation instructions show how to install Terminus as a library. And with the release of the machine tokens, you might be able to have your Drupal site manipulate itself via Terminus on the platform.
Yeah, we definitely want to provide a way to allow your Quicksilver scripts to switch back and forth between SFTP and Git mode should that be necessary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I talked to Josh about this, and we want a clear path for doing so. We haven't had the time to try to put together an example, but maybe. Sean also asked, can I run bhat tests?
I think that would work fine. In fact, I was hoping to get one of those examples working today. Since bhat is written in PHP, you should be able to run it right from your Quicksilver.
Right there on the test environment.
Right there
run
on
your
the
tests automatically.
Should work.
That sounds great.
Righty, our next question comes from Michael. This is a 2-3-parter. Michael is asking, do workflow scripts have access to run Drupal API/drush commands? Could a script do something like enable double when cloning the database to dev?
Mm-hmm. Yes. In fact, if you run drush via pass-through or exec in your Quicksilver script, then that just works. And in fact, a recommended mechanism for writing complicated scripts is to write a drush or a WP CLI command and package it with your Drupal site. And then you can call that drush command from your Quicksilver script. And inside the drush command, you have full access to all of the Drupal APIs or the WordPress APIs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the example that ran earlier, I'm showing my screen now, really is a script that makes sure that this doesn't run on live, and then pass-throughs drush SQL send -y, and that's it. And it ran perfectly as expected.
Righty, and a follow-up to that is, and if so, would the users ever see the site between the DB clone and the script running?
We don't lock down the site during Quicksilver operations, but you could have Quicksilver put your site into maintenance mode or something like that if you were doing long-running operations.
Yeah, so it's going to happen right after the clone database completes. So I guess it's just an order of operations. If you do put it in maintenance mode immediately after and then run the sanitized DB, it should do exactly what you want.
Right.
Oh, and we have an FYI. Quicksilver is also the name of a Flash-like app produced by Microsoft, and I got quiet there because I think it's called Silverlight.
But there is the Silverlight, and there may be another Quicksilver, but right now Quicksilver is our internal name, and we have not decided what the product name is.
Oh, they decided.
Oh, it's
Quicksilver Platform Hooks.
Quicksilver Platform Hooks.
Quicksilver
okay.
Platform.
Well, there you go. Not to be confused with Quicksilver Microsoft editors.
Yes. And Quicksilver is the name of an X-Men character. I don't know. I don't think that's a mythological
confused
connection to Pantheon for a lot of our longtime users. A lot of our products have mythological names. Yeah. Oh, and Sean says Quicksilver is also a Mac automation system.
It's just such an awesome name that it appears as part of the name of many product names. It's just a very small part of our name.
Yeah, it's an automation system, and Nathan nods his head approvingly, as though he knew. Yes, Sean. Is this Sean again? Oh, it's Robin. Okay. And the name of a snowboard and surfing brand connected to Roxy is their women's line.
Well, if we ever have a Pantheon contest, we'll have to buy some of these things for prizes.
It's all right, Sean. All right. Any other questions about using Quicksilver?
Or about the name. Alrighty, looks like that is all the questions we have for today. Brian, Greg, any closing statements for our power users?
Engage onto that Quicksilver-examples repository. That's it's not going away. We intend on continuously developing new examples as we need them internally, as you need them. We have an issue queue up there looking for different new examples. If you want to see an example, put an issue into the issue queue on Quicksilver-examples repository. I'll jump over to that real quick. Issues. Got 9 open issues here, but check it out. We are really happy to kind of unleash this onto our agency and power users. I expect a lot of increased productivity, a lot of higher quality sites, especially, Sean, when we get that BHAT test example going up. And we thank you for using Pantheon, and we hope that this will improve your productivity, improve the quality of your sites.
Thank you all so much for watching. If you have any questions or feedback, please visit our website where you'll find a contact us page, and we'll put you in touch with the best member of our team. Have a great week, everyone.